Hey everybody, it's Avi Tenenbaum. I have a beautiful idea to share with you for Sukkos. It can help us grow as people. Every Jewish holiday has a distinct lesson that we're meant to take, and that's why you have Shavuos, and you have Pesach, and you have Purim, and Sukkos. Each holiday is different, and we're meant to take the lesson of the holiday and then look at the holiday and engineer it around this lesson so that by the time we're done with the holiday, we have grown as people, and we have now taken that lesson with us for the rest of the year, okay? And that's how we become successful and happy people, and it will be better for us in the world to come, and even in this world, even in business and our relationships, at home, everywhere we go. So, what's the idea of Sukkos? So of course we could talk so much about Sukkos. We're going to focus on two ideas that fit together. I ran this by Rav Asher Weiss this morning. He agreed that this is two compatible ideas that are meant to fit together. So here we go. If you look in the Bible, in the Torah, it says the reason we sit in the Sukkah is Zecher li'anane hakavod. It is to remember the clouds of glory that Hashem gave to us. Remember that we left Egypt, we went into this desert for 40 years, and there were spiritual dangers and physical dangers, and if you ever stood on a hot day outside, so try doing that in a desert, and try doing that for 40 years, and try doing that with your family. It's kind of hard, right? And so God gave us this amazing, miraculous Anane HaKavod, the clouds of glory, and we were enveloped in those clouds over those years, and this protected us from the elements until finally we got to get the Torah and got to Eretz Yisrael. So the question is like this. We're meant to build a sukkah in our parking lot, in our front yard, backyard, on the roof, to remember the Anane HaKavod, and I can kind of get that idea, right? Because you go out of the element, you go out of your house, somewhere in the street, somewhere in your backyard, you're not used to being there, you're not with all your stuff, and you move in there, you park there, you're somewhat vulnerable, and you are in the Sukkah now, and you're with Hashem, and so-called Hashem is protecting you, and that is a remembrance of the Anane HaKavod. I get the idea. Okay. Says Reb Nosson of Breslov in the Sefer Likutei Halachos, one of the most incredible svarim you'll ever see. And if you have time to read over the piece on Sukkos, and you can learn it with the Chavrusa, it's well worth it because he explains everything so amazing. What's the point of Sukkos and Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah and the David Midim, and how does it fit together? So I'm just going to give you a spoonful of what Reb Nosson says about the Sukkah in the very beginning of his first piece. He says, you can look at the nature of the mitzvah to understand the essence of the mitzvah. And so the dimensions of the sukkah are that a sukkah has to be a minimum measurement of 7 by 7 tefachim, okay? So it's not that big. Those are the parameters of a sukkah. You can kind of cram and shove yourself in there. And a sukkah has to be at least 7 by 7 tefachim. Reb Nosson makes a big deal of this, and he explains how we can understand from that something about the sukkah, and then he goes into other dimensions about the sukkah can't be above 20 amos, what's the idea of that, and so on and so forth. Let's just focus on the idea that a sukkah has to be 7 by 7 tefachim. What does that tell us about sukkahs? Why is that practical for real people, you and me, in 2022? The number 7 in the Torah has tremendous significance for many, many things. One of them is it corresponds to the 7 portals of your head. Watch this. 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, and a mouth. 7 holes, 7 places in which we interact with the outside world. Okay? That's a Kabbalistic idea. It's brought in a lot of svarim, the 7 portals, the Shiva Neiros. And says Reb Nosson of Breslov that a person sleeps every day, they eat every day, they speak, they smell, they hear, they look, they read, they listen. That is how you are a human being. You go about through your life interacting through the world with these 7 portals. So Reb Nosson says the Sukkah is meant to teach you that everything that the Jew does in his day, from beginning to end, even the most mundane things like sleeping, it has to be brought into the parameters of Kedusha. It has to be in the parameters of holiness. We are meant to sanctify everything we do all day, even the most mundane things. You're just eating some potato chips, you're schmoozing away with your friend, you're reading something. Well, what are you reading? You're looking on social media. What are you consuming on social media? You're drinking a beer. Does it have a good kashrus? You're having a chat with a friend. Is this somebody you should be chatting with? What are you talking about? Okay? And before you know it, the Torah comes to help us become very great holy people. And that's the lesson of the Sukkah. We eat in the Sukkah, we sleep in the Sukkah. We're meant to have conversations in the Sukkah. You can look in the Mishnah Berurah in the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Taf Reish Lamed Tes about that in the Shulchan Aruch. We're meant to do everything in the Sukkah and make it holy. And we're meant to make our lives filled with holiness. Okay? When we live with sanctification of the mundane, and we make our phone calls holy, and what we read has some sort of a calculation. Why are we reading this? The music we're listening to, is this okay music to listen to? Who are we following on social media? Who are our friends? What type of food are we eating? Where are we hanging out? When we're careful with what we consume, this itself gives us tremendous holiness, purpose, and meaning. It helps us to become self-respectable, dignified people. We're not just an animal that lives at every whim of temptation and gobbles down whatever is in front of us and makes relationships with people that we shouldn't and listens to music that we shouldn't and just does whatever we want because we feel like it. No, we're dignified people. We're rising above our animalistic senses, and we are living in a controlled manner according to our morals and values. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you an interesting story about a train on this topic. Once we live with Kedusha, we are a sukafiable person. And that's a word I just made up now. I hope to put that in the title of this video, to make ourselves a sukafiable person. So Reb Nosson of Breslov says that this is a concept from Sukos, is the concept of holiness and watching what we consume and how we carry ourselves. Says the Chidushay Harim, Sukos is the only mitzvah which you do it even with your galashes, even with your dirty boots. And what he's saying is, even if you take your dirty boots and you walk into the sukkah and you sit down and that's all you did, you are makayim a mitzvah. And that's exactly this concept. Everything that the Jew does on Sukkos is a mitzvah when it's in the sukkah. And that's the idea. Everything a Jew does when it's done with a calculation for holiness, it's done according to halacha. This raises us up as great people. Now watch, because we're going to get deeper. When we act holy, this earns us the right to be protected by the Ananei HaKavod. Because we said that the Sukkah corresponds to the cloud of glory, to the Ananei HaKavod. Look at the biblical Ananei HaKavod. There's a story of Amalek that they killed a bunch of Jews. This is a biblical story. How did they kill the Jews? Weren't the Jews protected by the cloud of glory? Says the Chazal, no. There were Jews in the Ananei HaKavod, but there were some Jews that didn't follow the rules. They weren't holy enough to earn their rights to be protected by the Ananei HaKavod. And it says, Poltan. The Ananei HaKavod kicked them out, and they were kind of straggling behind, walking behind the Ananei HaKavod. And those were the vulnerable people that the Amalek attacked and killed. Okay? So you see, you don't have unalienable rights to be in the Ananei HaKavod just because you're American or Israeli. You have to earn your right to be protected by the Ananei HaKavod. There are basic rules. Just like if you would go to a store, no shirt, no shoes, no service. If you go to a court, there's a certain dignified way that you act. So the Ananei HaKavod is a great privilege. We talk a lot about privilege in 2022. There's no right to this. But if you're holy and we act as a sukafiable person, as a dignified person with sanctification in our lives, and we're careful with what we consume, then we earn the right to go into the Ananei HaKavod, and we get protected by the Ananei HaKavod. And guess what happens when you're sitting in an Ananei HaKavod all the time, and you're witnessing this miracle? You become a great, great person. And this is the second theme of Sukkos. The Zohar says when you sit in the Sukkah, you merit the Tzira Dim Hemnusa, which we won't get into the details of that, but you merit getting close to the concept of faith. You become a person of faith. Don't we all need more faith in our lives? And I'm going to say some stories in a moment about faith, but we need God in our lives because all our lives are filled with challenges. I don't know this Sukkos who I'm addressing, but some people are going to go to some toxic families in difficult family situations for Sukkos. Some people are divorced parents who are going to be handing the kids back and forth, custody issues. I spoke to somebody recently like that. There's going to be challenges, and even if your life is sweet and everything is good, there's still challenges in life. There's challenges in the bank account. There's challenges with physical health. We all need faith in our lives, and we need the fortitude and strength and resilience to get through life. It's not so simple. We need God in our lives, and we need dignity and self-respect and peace. Don't we need peace? Don't we need peace of mind? And so we need something transcendent to help us overcome our difficulties. And if you go back to the old TFRP videos on faith, in the faith series, we spoke a lot about this. So when we make ourselves holy people, which merits us to be sukafiable, and now we go into the sukkah, we go into the anani hakavod, you know what happens? We spend so much time with God, and this culminates in simchas Torah. And Torah is the most beautiful thing. Look how much happiness it brings me. And I do a lot of things. I've studied martial arts in my life, and I volunteer in the police and in Natsala, and I've flown around the world, and I like to have fun. There's nothing greater than Torah at the end of the day. Nothing greater than Torah. It brings so much joy. It brings clarity. It helps us to build ourselves as people. So that's what we earn. So let's recap, and then we'll continue and then wrap up, okay? We want to be holy people, guard what we consume, bring everything of the mundane that we do every day into the sukkah. Be careful with what we read, what we hear, what we say, etc. Then we merit to go into the anani hakavod, into the sukkah, and then we merit the protection and spending the intimate time with God all the way till the end of Sukos. And our faith grows because you're spending quality time with God. You become a person of faith. And this culminates in the joy, the great closeness of us with Hashem, having the Torah, always finding Hashem through the Torah's wisdom and guidance and clarity. Isn't that great? You need clarity, and the Torah always tells you what to do, what choices to make, how to live. There's nothing like that, and you live with so much purpose and meaning, and it's the greatest, most beautiful thing, and it helps us transcend all of our suffering, and it even gives us tremendous pleasure. I met a person this week who's going through terrible suffering like you cannot imagine. Like, if you know people that are suffering, this is like worse than that. It's unusually bad. But he's a Torah scholar, and the Torah is carrying him in the clouds above his difficulties, and he's a happy, healthy person, and the Torah is mamish saving his life day by day, helping him get through the tough things, and not only getting through the day and barely surviving, but being happy and thriving and growing as a person. And don't we all need that in our lives? So I'm going to say just a few stories about this, and then we're going to wrap up. Every Sukkos, I merit to daven with Rav Asher Weiss in his shul, and then I see him on Simchas Torah, and he cries and he sings the song Mulei Sayrascha Sha'ashuai Az Avadati Ba'ani, and tears come down his face, and he's crying tears of joy and great closeness to God. So you see a real person in 2022 who has a true, intimate, emotional relationship with God, and he's crying and he's saying, God, without your Torah, I would be lost. Thank you, Hashem, for your Torah. I see this every year. Okay? I have a Shas in my house, one volume of a Shas. It's a Gemara of Meseches Yevamos, and it's the printing Shas called the Shas Minkin. Minkin is a place in Germany. What happened was the Jews were butchered and gassed and killed in the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust, many Jews were in DP camps in Germany, and they needed a Gemara to learn. And the American army printed a Shas. It's very rare, and it's called the Shas Tfus Minkin. And I have one volume, story how I got it. One day maybe I could take a picture and I could show you what it looks like. When you look on the front page, instead of the typical gate and lions or whatever the picture is of every Gemara, you see Jews collecting bodies in wheelbarrows from Auschwitz. You see the different buildings of the concentration camps. And then there's a pasuk which says, exact pasuk is escaping me right now. If I can, I'll put the picture in the video. But the pasuk says, without you, God, and without your Torah, I would be lost. I wouldn't be able to have gone through this. Such a beautiful thing to write in the beginning of a Gemara, and such an epic, crazy time of our history. I was reading this book I told you about in another video, the book about Reb Tzvi Aryeh Rosenfeld. Amazing book from the Breslov Research Institute. And in there's a story about a tzaddik in post-war Europe named Rav Beirich Robinson, who lost his wife and children in the war. He takes a boat, gets off in New York, and he goes straight to the Aguda office in New York, and he finds Rav Moshe Scherer, who was a very special person. I went to his Levaya, I think it was in 1998, I remember as a child. And he grabs Reb Moshe Sherer by the hand, and he starts dancing, and he sings the song with the pasuk, Zaydim heritzuni ad ma'id u'mitayrascha laini tisi. That, I'm not going to exactly translate Zaydim, but this tremendous suffering and these terrible people and things surrounded me and tried to overwhelm me, and I still didn't deviate from your Torah at all. I stuck close to your Torah, and your Torah helped me get through, even losing my wife and children in the Holocaust. And he was dancing and singing with Reb Moshe Sherer on the middle of the floor of the Aguda office in New York. And Reb Moshe Sherer said, I cannot believe the resilience and fortitude of these people. I can't believe it. And he said this was a memorable moment in Reb Moshe Sherer's life, to see a Jew who lost so much and the Torah helped him get through it. That was another story. I want to tell you one last story and we'll finish the video. I took a train from Ukraine to Poland because I was in Uman for Rosh Hashanah. I've been going every year for many, many years. And the train leaves in a place called Bilecirka, and it goes to a place in Poland called Przemysl, and altogether it took us 14 hours on the train. It's a really long train ride. And so they give you these bedrooms where you're able to sleep. And I went on with maybe 200 Hasidim, and all the Hasidim got their own room. So you have a room with 4 Hasidim, 4 Hasidim, 4 Hasidim, and then a bunch of my friends and I, for some reason, the planning of the rooms didn't work out, and there was a Ukrainian woman, Chassid. Ukrainian woman, Chassid. So just 2 people in the room, me and a Ukrainian woman, a friend of mine and a Ukrainian woman, and it's kind of silly. So we thought, we have a simple idea. Let's ask the Ukrainian women. Presumably, they'd rather be 2 women together in a bedroom. It's a tiny, cramped room. You're sleeping literally next to somebody else. You don't even know them. It's a bit uncomfortable, to say the least. Not sneeze. We figured the women would want to bunk together, and the woman that we asked, she says, no, I don't want to move. Then my friends offered her money, and she said, no, not even for money. I'm staying here. Now we're stuck. We didn't have a place to go. So we start talking and saying, well, it's not really yichud. We'll pack 3 guys into the bedroom with the Ukrainian woman, and then we'll have, Ukrainian woman, chassid, chassid, and chassid. We'll shove people on the top. We'll have 4 people all together, and it won't be yichud. And we say, what are we even talking about? You guys, why are we discussing this? This is not a question. We're just not doing it. That's it. So we entertained the idea for like 30 seconds, maybe less, and then we all shoved like sardines into this room. Some other guys were really nice to us, and they let us in. And so imagine there's like 12, 13 Hasidim jam-packed into this room like sardines. Mamish, you could barely move. It was hot. We barely slept. It was Mesiras Nefesh. It was hard. Not simple. And I was very inspired by this story. And then there was a guy that there wasn't even room for him to shove in. And so he sat in the hallway, and there's barely even room to sit in the hallway because it's so narrow. And I was just so amazed, and I'll tell you why. I do 2 professional things in my work day to day. One is I deal with disaster and trauma. The other is I deal with addiction. And when I deal with addiction, I meet wonderful Jewish people who have done some of the most regrettable things with people that they shouldn't have. They've done all sorts of forbidden things, forbidden relationships, and they've broken every red line. And you have to understand that those people no longer have a buffer zone between them and people that they shouldn't be with, that they shouldn't touch, that they shouldn't seclude themselves with. And they've lost their buffer zone because they've done everything up to the act itself, which is forbidden, including the act itself. And then here's my friends, these beautiful, sweet people that they raised me up. They're on a much higher level than me, and that's why I travel with them every year and I hang out with them. And they say, technically for yichud, it's possible that we can go into the room with the woman and it halachically won't be an issue. But that's not the issue here. The issue is our sensitivity, our buffer zone, our space in between our values and our behavior. And we want to maintain a wide berth between what we do and we don't want to cut corners, because when you cut corners, you cut that buffer zone away. And when you cut the buffer zone away, you're this close from doing things that you shouldn't do instead of that close. And you've just torn down a bunch of fences that you had psychologically, emotionally, spiritually to help you. I was so amazed by this and so impressed that there's a lot of people today that they'll throw their morals and their values out in the garbage to please other people, to be popular, to say what everybody says. And these guys, everywhere they go, they act the same way. They stick up to their morals and values. I was so impressed by this. We started the video by saying that to merit being in the Sukkah, we have to become sukafiable people. And to do that, we have to be careful with our actions, what we consume, and to sanctify even the mundane. And the Torah says, Kadesh atzmecha b'mutra lecha, that you should sanctify even that which is permitted to you. And that's what my friends did. Kedoshim tiyu. You're in Mamlechas Kohanim v'goy kadosh. So that's the lesson, guys. Let's learn the lesson together. When we grow, not only do we make it better for ourselves in the afterlife, we make it better for ourselves in this world. Because instead of living by our whims and our temptations, we become greater people, able to go through more and make better decisions, be more mindful of what's going on, have value-based living. We'll be more successful in business, in relationships, and in all areas of life. Thank you, guys. I wish you the most beautiful Sukkos. If you happen to be listening to this and you're going to a toxic place, abusive place for Sukkos, please take care of yourself. Give yourself some private space. Make good boundaries. Make sure that you enjoy Sukkos yourself. Remember who you are. You're a beautiful, special person. Don't let anyone take that away from you. I bless everyone with the most beautiful, wonderful Sukkos. Thank you, everyone.